This year, for this October, I really wanted to watch more horror movies and read more comics that were horror-based, and so I decided that I was going to read the Marvel Zombies and the DCeased series, and then on top of that, I ended up reading the Rick Grimes 2000 Walking Dead spinoff. So I'm going to be talking about those in today's video. I've been a huge fan of The Walking Dead for a while now, but this October I just had this perfect excuse to start reading more zombie content. To my surprise, when I started reading the Marvel Zombies, I realized it was actually created by Robert Kirkman, the same person who made The Walking Dead, which makes perfect sense, and I wasn't that surprised when I realized, honestly. But he once again writes another fantastic zombie series. To be fair though, he didn't get to really give it like a full ending, but I started reading it. I read it all online first before I bought it, but this right here is the Marvel Zombies Omnibus. In it, it contains Marvel Zombies 1 through 5, which came out in 2005, Marvel Zombies 2, which came out in 2007, and then Marvel Zombies Dead Days, which came out also in 2007. And so essentially, Marvel Zombies 1 and 2 were written by Kirkman, as well as Marvel Zombies Dead Days. Dead Days serves as like a prequel, so that's why it came out in 2007, but it takes place before. But essentially, this omnibus collects everything that Robert Kirkman had a hand in writing. But to give a quick little synopsis of what Marvel Zombies is about, exactly what you'd expect. A zombie virus has plagued the Marvel Universe, or at least, one of the many Marvel universes. And these heroes are the first people to show up when the zombies arrive, and they all immediately are infected by this virus. It doesn't matter if you have superpowers or if you're a normal human being, you can be infected. But once you are infected, you don't turn into a mindless zombie. You actually still have some intelligence, but you are driven by the hunger. But very quickly, almost immediately, the superheroes turn into zombies and eat the entire planet, with food becoming very scarce very fast. That is until the Silver Surfer shows up and tells all these zombies that Galactus is going to be showing up to their planet. Usually people would be afraid when that's been said, but the zombies were only thinking one thing, and that's, hey, more food is about to arrive. But I don't want to get into any more of this because it's just such a fun series, and I think anyone who just likes a story that's not connected to like main continuity really would enjoy picking this up. I think the concept that Robert Kirkman made for how the zombies work in this series is super interesting. It's interesting to see how like certain heroes turn into zombies and feel really bad for their actions in killing innocents, and some of them kind of shrug it off and just go with it. And then later down the line, it plays into even more interesting plot lines. To not give away too many spoilers, but essentially there is a way to like get over the hunger. And yeah, it really makes for an interesting story, but it didn't really get a final conclusion. It's sort of open-ended, but for what it's worth, it really has a good story. The characters are written well, even though it's not a completely canon story. But really, there are more Marvel Zombies stories that get told after this point, like this other one that I bought that isn't written by Robert Kirkman. This is the only other Marvel Zombies title that I picked up because I really like how the story connects to Robert Kirkman's work. It feels like it picks up where it left off. It's not perfect by any means, but I feel like it kind of gives Robert Kirkman's original storyline an ending. I mean, it's sort of an ending, but it's also sort of like a grandfather paradox. It's hard to explain.
But if you could loop back to visit the universe at an earlier point in time, a famous paradox arises, showing this as a looping linear series of events, but really it's two entangled histories happening in parallel.
But I personally do enjoy it as like a complete ending. If you really think about it, if you read just the omnibus and this volume, it does feel like a self-contained story. But then you get to the other Marvel Zombies titles, and those ones feel more open-ended. They feel less connected to the original Marvel Zombies title. And they're fun. I just personally didn't really care for it as much because it just wasn't like a fully like self-contained story. Rather a bunch of like different like side stories that like kind of vaguely connect to one another, but don't really get like the complete ending you want. And then on top of that, they like rebooted it at some point. And the reboot is alright, but it's not as good. And then just before I move on, I do want to shout out Marvel Zombies, the animated show that came out. It was supposed to be a movie, but Spider-Man ended up making it a series instead because of legal issues. But genuinely, that one blew my expectations out of the water, and that's what got me to start reading the Marvel Zombies series this Alright, I'm gonna move on to DCeased. I bought the box set for DCeased. It's really clean, it has all the volumes, and I really like DCeased. I don't know if I like it more necessarily. I think I kind of do. I think I do like DCeased a little bit more than Marvel Zombies, only because, like I was saying, the issue with Marvel Zombies is that it kind of expands and becomes less of a self-contained story, and this one does the complete opposite, where it has plenty of side stories to like build out this DCeased storyline, but it has a few volumes that are just straight up like self-contained plotline. For me, it can get kind of difficult to want to keep reading a comic if there isn't a storyline that's being followed throughout it. And this one does not fail. It has some of the coolest ideas that I've ever seen for these like DC superheroes, especially for Constantine. Constantine has such a cool storyline in this one. Not to mention like the way that they like pass down the mantles to like Damian and to John as other characters start to get infected. I really like how the virus is part of how Darkseid is trying to get like the anti-life equation, and it just gets mixed with death and ends up becoming this digital virus. I thought that was a really cool idea, especially for an age where we're all on our phones so much, where if something like that were to happen, it really would infect like the entire world very quickly, almost in an instant. But I really like the characters that they highlight in this series. It really does feel like these characters are just coming straight from the main continuity, but it's not, because it is an Elseworld story. But these characters are just written really well, and I think that has to do with Tom Taylor, because I personally really like Tom Taylor's work, and when he does write stuff for like main continuity, I always enjoy it. But enough rambling. This is a nice little 5-volume series, and I'll be looking forward to rereading it again sometime. Now, when I started making this video, I only really had Marvel Zombies and DCeased in mind, but then I remembered that there was a spin-off series from The Walking Dead called Rick Grimes 2000. This is a really wild sci-fi zombies tale that essentially creates like another parallel universe where Rick gets essentially transported to like another world where a bunch of these characters who had previously died in the main story are actually alive and fighting against aliens and previous villains from their past, along with the zombie apocalypse. When you go into this, you got to go into it with an open mind, because it's not a like normal horror zombie series like the original was. This one is in full color and just gives you a really fun, different take on the Walking Dead universe. The icing on the cake for this is that Robert Kirkman brought in Ryan Ottley, who was the same illustrator for the Invincible series, and so the art is just incredible. And it looks like if the Walking Dead fell into Invincible. And just because we're talking about comic book series that revolve around zombies, we might as well just go back to one of the most iconic ones, being The Walking Dead. The original Walking Dead is just released in black and white, and is strictly a horror zombie comic. So if you watch any of my other comic videos, you'll know just how much I like Robert Kirkman and The Walking Dead, so you'll know that I'm going to sit here and praise it all day. The comic books are amazing, and the TV show it's okay. I personally love the Walking Dead TV show, but I know it's not perfect. I do think that sometimes the show did things better than the comics, but I also think the comics most of the time did better than the show. So that's why I always highly recommend people who are a fan of the Walking Dead TV show to give the actual original comic a read. So that was my Zombies comic Halloween video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope everyone had a great Halloween this year. I'll see you in the next video. Or will I?
In today's video, I took a bunch of comics that I didn't want anymore, and a bunch of games I haven't played in a while, and took them to Second & Charles to see how much I could get for them.
I went in with a couple of my New 52, a bunch of them from just like Batman and Robin and like the other side Batman stories that were coming out.